The editor-in-chief is a former IOF soldier? No. The editor-in-chief is a former Israeli occupying force jailer. Not just any kind of soldier, but also one that operated the Palestinian detention facilities. That's it. They're trying to provoke you, so you'll end up misspeaking or say a trigger phrase, then they'll clip you. Don't fall for it. Yeah. We'll look at the Christian album per piece in a little bit. I have it here. The notion that Hamas are bad because they're bad is stupid. Here in Algeria, the FLN, Front de Libération Nationale, was also labeled as a terrorist organization by the French occupation and their European allies. Now it's praised as a symbol of freedom. It's always the same shit. Yes, that's why I said the IRA as well. The IRA, the FLN, and also Mandela's party as well. Okay? The Viet Cong. Yeah, the ANC, the Viet Cong, the IRA. Every single instance. It is so weird that every single instance where there is a liberatory group, there's an emancipatory force that actually is violently trying to engage in an act of revolution, trying to violently engage in an act of emancipation, violently resisting against an unimaginable, untold amount of violence caused by the occupying entity under the legal structure designed by the Western world. They are always the fucking enemies. They're always the terrorists. They're always the bad guys. They're always the fucking bad guys. You think Nazi Germany didn't consider the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising to be fucking bad? Conducted by the bad guys? Of course they did. So in many ways, it becomes a much simpler equation. You have to look at a situation and go, who's right here? And if roles were reversed, you would understand who's right. Okay? If it was an Arab Muslim country dominating 6 million Jews and locking them in concentration camps, locking them in a fucking apartheid structure where there are two tiers, and then maybe every now and then they'll have one Jewish person on like a political position, as they did in Nazi Germany as well, by the way. You have to remember that. Okay? And then they turn around and go, hey, guess what, dude? It's actually fucking what apartheid? What are you talking about? As they bomb one of the concentration camps, as they bomb one of the open air prisons where almost 2.5 million Jews live, where they have the population registry, where they literally have complete access to their water, their electricity, all matter of commerce. And those 2 million Jews living in that open air prison rely on international aid to survive, where the unemployment is at like 60%. There is 24/7 drone surveillance. And the Arab Muslim country that's doing this would get all matter of like support from these massive countries, these dominating hegemonic superpowers that are just giving them all the fucking weapons to do so. You would know exactly what's going on there because a similar thing happened. Okay?
A Hamas official confirmed that 2 senior commanders targeted by Israel were killed.
This chart is cognizant of a weird coalition that occurred in the 1940s. Wonder why America's there. Weird. Because we are the fucking #1 funders and facilitators of fascism. Grinspan, a Jewish militant, killed the German ambassador in France in response to what Germany did. He was tried as a terrorist, and Nazis used it to justify more oppression.
But there's no doubt that Palestinian civilians were also among the dead and injured. Israel claims it used precise munitions and that its intelligence assessment prior to this strike was that what it called uninvolved civilians would not be hurt. But dozens were taken to field hospitals, including these children, prompting expressions of outrage from some European leaders. Just days after the UN's top court ordered Israel to stop the violence.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy that the international community was like, hey, man, you're like kind of out of control here. Perhaps you should stop being so violent in Rafah specifically. And Israel's answer to that was, no, thank you. As a matter of fact, I will not be doing that. And I will get even more violent than you ever could have imagined. It's great. Thank you.
What kind of conscience and religion does this? What kind of humanity? Where is the world? Where is the Islamic nation?
During the night, we received a total of 28 people who were dead on arrival and 180 wounded who were then stabilized and referred to the very few remaining medical structures within the area.
Daylight brought children searching among the charred ruins for anything of any value, because these people have almost nothing. The UN says over 800,000 Palestinians have fled the fight.
The BBC should show the headless beheaded baby that the father was carrying, and then show the tweets in the Telegram channel chats where Zionists were calling the headless baby a charred chicken nugget, and all the memes were saying they were chickens for sale for 1 shekel. Dude, there's no way to... Guys, I'm telling you, when I try to explain to you, like, we are literally watching fascism unfold. And I don't mean like, oh, you're a fascist because you're a Republican. Like, I'm talking about old school, straight up, definitional, ultra-nationalist fascism. This is what I mean. Okay? This is it. This is it. People love to fucking think about like, people love to dream about like, oh yeah, dude, no, I'd be fucking so in times like in former instances of like American violence, I'd be on the right side of history for sure, bro. It's like, no, you wouldn't, because you're doing that right now. Aaron Bushnell was correct. Huh. How dare you compare other genocides to this one? This one is a much slower burn than other genocides. That is the truth.
In the last 3 weeks alone. The Israelis say this was not a designated area to where civilians could evacuate, though it was certainly close to one, and having been displaced so many times, many dared believe they were at last safe.
We were displaced to the city of Rafah because they said it was safe. We were in our tents, ready to sleep, and I was trying to take care of my brother when we heard a big explosion and fire broke out, and people started screaming.
Yesterday, I pulled out the remains of 5 children and about 3 women, all in pieces, and none of them could be identified.
Why is Israel getting so much condemnation from Europe? Is it because of the ICC? Why is there such a difference in reaction compared to when Israel had already killed like 30,000 Palestinians in the first 3 months of the conflict? I don't just get it. Guys, there's a reason why. Listen. If you're kind of unfamiliar with the way that Zionism is operated, and I think many like former Zionists who are now anti-Zionists in this chat will actually remember this most likely. If you haven't been paying a lot of attention, you will notice that 75% of the UN condemnations, something like an insane amount of United Nations condemnations, are directed towards Israel. Okay? And none of them are actually enforceable because every single one of them has been vetoed by the Security Council. The UN has no power outside of the Security Council. You have the UNGA, the General Assembly, which all countries are a part of, and then you have the Security Council. The Security Council has rotating countries, and then it has 5 countries that are always permanent members, the real permanent members of the UN Security Council, okay? And the United States of America in the Security Council is consistently the #1 defender of Israel and has consistently voted on whatever the fuck Israel wants and it's consistently voted to strike down any kind of condemnation. So the UN has always been very critical of Israel, and many Zionists will tell you for years and years that's the reason why they've always said UN is actually very anti-Semitic. It's so anti-Semitic. The number one Zionist argument has always been, why so much criticism against Israel? Why Israel? Why not any of these other fucking countries that are doing their own versions of war crimes? That is the number one fucking argument that I've heard from Zionists for years and years and years and years, okay? Now they've obviously elevated that to directly being like UN is Hamas, but that's straight up an old school Zionist take. The only reason is because America defends Israel. So none of those condemnations ever amounted to anything. Okay? The major difference is now, beyond those condemnations, the world is paying attention. Young people are paying attention. That's the major issue right now. And that's why there's a lot more pressure, and that's why these international organs are feeling like they have some kind of momentum. They feel galvanized. They see what is going on, and can actually take action. The other side of this equation, of course, is obviously Israel's own personal behavior, its own personal conduct thus far. Israel has gone above and beyond. There has never been a siege that has been this violent, this brutal, this bloody. Okay? Israel has done mowing of the lawn operations time and time again in the Gaza Strip. It always is the same exact situation, okay? There's a ceasefire. There is a Hamas follows on the conditions of said ceasefire since the pullout. There's a ceasefire that is agreed upon. Then Israel starts brutalizing the Palestinian population in the West Bank. Hamas says, yo, cut that shit out. We're going to fucking lob some rockets. Okay? Then Israel says, lol, okay, good luck. And then continues brutalizing the Palestinians in the West Bank. Hamas throws a couple rockets or maybe like takes a fucking IDF soldier hostage or whatever the fuck. And then Israel turns around and engages in a siege. They siege Gaza. They kill a shit ton of people, a couple thousand people here and there. They blow up a bunch of fucking buildings. And then they turn around and inevitably arrive at yet another ceasefire for a couple years. And in that ceasefire period, while many Americans are not paying attention, while many Israelis are not paying attention, the Israeli government is still very much operating in the exact same violent and brutal ways. The apartheid, that is, of course, whether it be in the Gaza Strip, implementing unimaginable trade restrictions, putting the Palestinians on a fucking caloric deficit that they openly say is putting them on a diet. And on the West Bank, they have the military occupation. No state with contiguity for Palestinians on their own fucking ancestral homeland that the United Nations literally told them this is your thing. Actually insane that they can just get away with all of this like nothing is happening. I just don't understand. It is because of the United States of America that they can get away with this like there is nothing happening. We give them the political cover. That's it. This is precisely why I say America fucking bad, okay? That's it. That's it. There's no way that they get to do this without American support. None.
The scale of what happened last night has forced Israel's Prime Minister into calling this a tragic mistake.
In Rafah, we already evacuated about 1 million non-combatant residents. And despite our utmost efforts not to harm non-combatants, something, unfortunately, went tragic.
Yeah, it's a tragic mistake. A tragic mistake. I never thought that this would happen. Oh. Piece of shit. Yeah. Meanwhile, as Netanyahu is like, oh, it's a tragic mistake. His fucking mouthpiece is celebrating the Rafah attack. Like it's a Lag BaOmer bonfire. Of course. Tragic mistake, by the way. Oh. Oh, dude. Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. HasanAbi. I literally thought you were going to use this as an opportunity to fucking serve a 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour. So thank you for actually sending me, not that, but instead, the actual thing that the Israeli Defense Force tweeted last night. Oh my God. Which, by the way, at the top of the hour, there is a 3-minute ad break. I'm going to do that right now. Obviously, I'm going to serve that right now. But this is the other aspect of this. This is the other aspect of this that I have to mention, which is that the IDF did exactly the same fucking bullshit that they do every time. Every fucking time. Every time, dude. Oh. They immediately came out with a justification for it. Okay? It's so strange, dude. It's so strange. Perhaps that is why more knowledgeable people in the immediate aftermath of the Al Ahly attack was like, hold on, I don't think this is a fucking exploded ordnance, even though it kind of looks a little weird. And everyone was like, wait, but Israel said they didn't blow up the hospital. I was like, bro, they fucking blew up the hospital 2 days prior. What are you talking about? The fuck do you mean? And they've blown up every hospital since then. Remember that. Anyway, the 3-minute ad break is here. Young Slug, thank you for the 10 community gift subs, allowing 10 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. Okay, here's the 3-minute ad break now. So what's up? Last night, the Israeli Air Force site carried out an intelligence-based precise strike targeted senior Hamas terrorist Intal as Sultan. Contrary to Hamas's lies and misinformation, the strike did not take place in the Al-Mawasi humanitarian area. This is the area where the strike actually happened. Calm down. Your haters would love to clip this. Wait, what? What did I say? I didn't say anything that, like... Yeah, only hours before Netanyahu decided to claim the strike was a mistake, the IDF edited the humanitarian zone again, the one they had unilaterally declared to say refugee tents they struck in Rafah were not a part of it. Okay? So just something to consider here. There is no amount of fucking cruelty or brutality or violence that Israel won't do. And there's no amount of lies that they won't tell. That's it. Like, since October 7, there have been, unironically, less real statements that the organs of communication and propaganda from the Israeli government have made than lies. If you look at all of the statements that they offer for one truthful sentiment that they express, there is 700 lies. Every single thing. Now, that's not unique to Israel. That's what every government does, okay? The one thing, however, that is unique to Israel, okay? The one thing, because, like, dude, come on. I'm an American citizen, okay? It's like listening to the fucking State Department yap about, like, weapons of mass destruction and then justify an untold amount of cruelty that we subject the rest of the fucking planet to. That's their job. That's what the government does, okay? So don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying, like, some anti-Semitic shit, which is what a lot of people immediately get into a defensive posture against and go, oh, you must be saying this because, oh, they're Jews. They lie all the time, right? No, motherfucker. They're the government. Of course they're going to lie. The difference, however, with the way and the consistency in which Israel lies is that they don't even put effort into it. It blows my fucking mind. That's why it's partially laughable that people say, oh, Jews control Hollywood. Jews control the world. Motherfucker, look at them. Look at these Jews in Israel. What happened? They can't even fucking put together a decent, halfway decent lie. What happened? What, do they not have like a single fucking marketing manager? What's going on? Do they not have like an Ogilvy guy there? It doesn't make any sense. They literally would just be like, yeah, guys, they're terrorists. They're terrorists. They're terrorists. And here's why. Okay? Here's why. Here's why. It's because they don't need to. Because America has nestled Israel in its fucking bosom. Okay? That's why they don't think they need to lie adequately. That is the reason. It is basically the worst propaganda I've ever fucking seen. There's no, like, dude, even when the fucking pipeline blew up, like, the only thing I can think of, is like when America tried to be like, Russia must have blown up its own pipeline. Do you remember that? That was like an instance where I was like, come on, dude. Come on. Like, that's crazy. Okay. What the fuck are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, there was a mass blast where the American government was like, yeah, the Russia probably blew up its own pipeline. We don't know who did it. Definitely not our allies. And it was just like, dude, you're on autopilot. Are you fucking serious? You couldn't come up with something better than that? Like, you know what would have made more sense if you said, like, the orcas did it, you know? Oh, God, I fucking hate this disgusting Groiper Nazi freak. Literally everywhere. Thank you, Elon Musk. You are so great. I swear to God, if I was like, I swear to God, if I was literally 10% more conspiratorial, I would say that this is a psyop to make it seem like every single Palestinian defender is actually just straight up a Nazi, because that's the most visible aspects on Twitter of like Palestinian emancipation is almost always like the Jake Shield type. It's just like, it's so fucking gross, dude. Anyway. It's crazy how the whole Elon plus ADL partnership ended up with every report of open anti-Semitism on the platform getting immediately dismissed by the supposed safety team on Twitter. Spoiler alert, is just boss now. Yeah. AOC says the IDF attack on a tent camp of innocents in Rafah is an indefensible atrocity. This was done in open defiance of POTUS's red line and the ICJ's call for a ceasefire. It is long past time for the president to live up to his word and suspend military aid. That's right. That's great. AOC acting like Biden has a genuine red line. Bro, what do you mean? That's like phenomenal fucking political pressure being conducted literally from the right. She is a fucking congressperson. What are we talking about? Yeah, of course, dude. That's what you're supposed to say when you are literally a part of the government in the Democratic Party. What are you talking about? Shut the fuck up. That's her job. She's doing her job. She's doing it in the right way as well. Of course, we know that Biden's red line is like ridiculous. It's copium. You know it is. Oh my God. You don't understand anything about you don't understand anything about applying political pressure from inside of the fucking party. Guys, if you're anti-electoralist, just don't care about AOC. That's it. And move on. I don't know why I have to constantly hear from people who are like, I'm not going to vote. I don't care about voting. Fuck voting. I'm actually going to magically wish for continue. It's scary that genuinely more people are becoming more anti-Semitic because they're seeing Zionist freaks saying this shit. Yes, but you have to remember, this is why this community and myself, I will always maintain the position, because it's true, that Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. Zionism cynically uses Judaism as both a shield and a weapon. But 3,000 years of Jewish history, okay, as an ethno-religion and Jewish culture in general is exactly the opposite of the interest that Zionism presents. And this is not like a theological justification for it. I'm not talking about like the Neturei Karta angle here about how like until the Messiah comes, the Jews are a nationless people, you know, and then they'll magically have a state or whatever. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm talking about like 3,000 years of death and destruction and resistance against oppressive structures. That is the culture and history of Judaism, infinitely more than what this last fucking 75-year Zionist bullshit has been. That is precisely the reason why originally, as we showed yesterday or 2 days ago, in World War II, in the lead up to World War II in Nazi Germany, a big chunk of the German movement against Nazism was conducted by trade unionists, socialists, communists alike, many of which were Jews. That's why the late, great Michael Jamal Brooks used to say that it is his Jewish values that guide him and teach him to resist apartheid, to resist Zionism. Anyway. So it is my position that Zionism, of course, doesn't represent all Jews. Jews are not a fucking monolith. No one is a monolith, okay? And Zionism certainly does not represent all Jews. And as a matter of fact, it is literally the antithetical values that have been cynically put in place by those who want to maintain a ethno-state and take over the entire land in that area, that have literally rewrote Jewish values and Jewish history for the past 75 years and have done it in such a successful way that it is virtually, especially impossible for many people who are directly victims of Zionist suppression, the apartheid, but it is even, it's getting harder and harder for people even in the Western world to separate the two. And I think this is a very dangerous prospect. It's a very dangerous prospect for Jews in general, okay? Not being able to see that Israel is completely separate from Judaism as a whole and Jewish people as a whole is a very dangerous prospect, because the more people start recognizing that Israel is a violent, barbaric ethno-state and an apartheid when it's not doing a unimaginable, untold amount of fucking ethnic cleansing to the Palestinian population. That's the good stuff. That's the peaceful times for Israel. The more people recognize that, and the more all of those instances of Israel cynically fucking tying Judaism to their righteous cause, the harder it gets for people to separate the two. Because people are not very good at critical thinking. Okay? As a whole, we're very dumb. We're not very smart. So when someone is saying like, no, dude, I'm doing this ethnic cleansing for Judaism, people are going to go, okay, I guess he's doing it for Judaism. Well, I don't know. And especially if you've never met an anti-Zionist Jew or never even met a Jewish person at all, as many people living in relatively segregated communities have never met a Jewish person. Not a lot of Jewish people out there in general, right? And certainly not in like heartland America in the middle of the country and shit, unless they are fucking rabid evangelicals who are anti-Semitic, by the way, in many instances, but pro-Israel. You're going to start going, okay, I guess this is just a Jewish thing. And it is shocking to me. It is shocking to me that more people do not recognize this. It is shocking to me that more people don't go, uh-oh, this is not good. Like when you have, okay, when you have the Apartheid Defense League, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, as they called themselves, making statements about like the UN condemning Israel or making statements about the ICC prosecuting Benjamin Netanyahu, you are literally actively saying, like, fuck anti-Semitism. I don't give a shit about that at all. I care about Israel and Israel only, okay? And people see that. But why are so many white nationalists that are pro-Israel? I don't understand it genuinely. Don't their hatred override their desire to be pro-Israel? A couple different reasons. Some white nationalists hate Jews more than they, I guess, like marginally hate Jews more than they hate Muslims, and like that they have a ethno-state and are like, we want that as well, and are jealous that Israel gets to have an ethno-state and hate Jews in general. So that like rabid anti-Semitism kicks in, so they're anti-Israel. And then the broader white nationalist movement comprised of like the evangelicals that don't do the reading to become like avowed open Nazis and whatever. Those white nationalists, you know, the average, the real nefarious white nationalism that lives at the heart of the Republican Party. Those guys, well, they love Israel. They're pro-Israel because of, one, theological reasons, like, you know, Israel, chosen sons and daughters of God, have to maintain all that land so that Jesus Christ can come back to earth in Megiddo and fight against the fucking Muslim hordes. They also love Israel because, like, some people see Israel as, like, the stopgap. You know what I mean? They think that, like, Israel is, like, fighting against Islamic hordes in the middle of that region. And that's why they're a very valuable ally. You know, there's a multitude of different reasons. Some of them like that it's a apartheid again. That some of them are just straight up fascists, and they're like, I ride for fascism, no matter who's doing it. They know the anti-Semitism charge is meritless, but normies who don't pay close attention are generically anti-bigotry. It's a way of poisoning the well so that people are scared of speaking out less. They be labeled a bigot. Yeah, except the difference is that shit is the reason why many progressives immediately after October 7th were like, whoa, I can't believe you. Are you saying that you're like pro-Hamas? The fuck? Are you pro-terrorism? What's happening here? Are you a little anti-Semitic? Did I not catch this? Right? Like, there's a reason for why that anti-Semitism, a cynical deployment of anti-Semitism for anyone who's an anti-Zionist, worked for like a brief window of time. Okay? Think about it this way. You're slowly seeing a lot more people trickle back into this community. Thank you for doing this. I'm Palestinian. Never thought the world would actually open their eyes to what is actually going on. Thanks for spreading the truth, brother. Yeah. One thing shared between Zionism and fascism is the central role of fear in society. This myth of ever-present, almost conspiratorial existential danger from minorities, i.e. the Arabs, all nationalism perpetuate itself uncritically. Like you said, Israel is distinct in that for Jews, there is real long history of repression as a powerless minority, though this time the power dynamics are reversed. Plus, of course, Islamophobia lets Zionist imagination run wild. Yeah. Oh, the other reason is because like a lot of the ultra Zionist anti-Semites also just want Jews to go and live in the fucking desert away from them. They're like, oh, I don't want you touching my money. Go over there. Like that is another reason, and that's precisely the reason why this fucking asshole that is on your screen right now, this fucking asshole right here, up here, okay, Mr. Holocaust revisionist himself, can get away with aligning with open anti-Semitic fascists like Viktor Orban. How can he do that? Because it's perfect. It's like if Jews feel less safe in the Western world, they have to come to Israel, where they will magically be safe, I guess, except not really. The manufacturing of consent is happening in real time. Yeah. We will show you that in a second. Let's continue.
We're investigating the incident and we'll reach conclusions because this is our policy.
But these Palestinians...
Honestly, I think that the fact that it took the Holocaust to even bring an actual sizable amount of Jews on board with the Zionist project, even though it had been around for like 50 years at that point, shows how removed it is from practical Jewish culture? Yes. Yeah, I mean, Jews were very resistant to Zionism initially. And I don't think there's ever been a point in history. I don't think there's ever been a point in history where there were more Jewish Zionists than there were Christian Zionists, even at the inception. Okay? Like, there's never been more Jewish Zionists in totality than there are Christian Zionists. Always.
Palestinians accompanying bodies for burial say the Israelis are liars and that condemnation from the International Court of Justice is meaningless. The situation in Gaza was described by one aid worker today as beyond catastrophic, though it never seems catastrophic enough to force Israel into changing course.
Well, I've been speaking to Sam Rose, who's the Director of Planning at the UN's Agency for Palestinians, UNRWA. He heard last night's strike from around 2 miles away in Al-Mawasi, where he's helping coordinate the humanitarian effort. I asked him for his reaction to what's happened.
Absolutely. I mean, this incident is particularly sickening, given the images, but also given the circumstances and the fact that so many women and children were killed, suffering horrific burns, but also being killed through shrapnel wounds. And I mean, it feels like we plumb new depths almost every day with what we see. But yeah, really, really heartbreaking, really sickening.
What do you make of the way the information comes out, or what can we read from that? In that, at first, Israel explained the attack and explained that they were targeting particular members of Hamas, and it's taken a few hours, but now they've said this was a tragic error.
I mean, we've seen attack after attack. We're at now 36,000 people killed, the majority women and children, given the breakdown of the population. So tragically, this is one incident amongst many, around 100 people killed in other parts of the Gaza Strip overnight, we understand, at least according to the figures of the Ministry of Health. I mean, what appears to have happened on this, and I can't comment on Israeli military strategy or communications, is it's the almost universal outcry and horror of this coming on top of everything else and the circumstances in which it happened. A camp of civilians, a camp of largely women and children who've been forced to flee to these areas anyway, been assured that these areas were part of a safe humanitarian zone, and coming so close to the ruling from the International Court of Justice, the highest judicial body in the UN, calling for a halt to the conflict. This is what we've seen.
Israel also says it did kill Hamas leaders in this attack. Does that mean it is routine that Hamas is mixing in the civilian population, even in areas that are supposed to be for internally displaced people?
I mean, these are very, very crowded areas of Gaza, very built-up areas. It's impossible to say with any certainty, but there are rules of war. There are rules of war on the Hamas side, but there are rules of war on the Israeli side, and on both sides, in terms of protecting the civilian nature of certain areas. But there are also rules regarding proportionality and avoiding excessive civilian casualties. And when you have an incident like this, it's hard to see what immediate military objective could justify such an attack.
The reason why Channel 4 and every other the reason why a journalist will ask these questions is not because he believes it. It's because he needs the expert to fucking clarify for the average person. This is not for you. This is for your dad, okay? This is for your mom. You need to understand, I am already well poisoned, okay? The well has been poisoned 1,000,000 times over for someone like myself, especially when, I am, despite the fact that I look very white, my name is Hasan, okay? Many people are not going to listen to me. Your parents, I mean. or many people who have heard time and time again how much of an Islamist fundamentalist I am and how much I love terrorism and how I fucking think America bad. That's all I care about is America bad. They're not going to listen to me, which is precisely the reason why. This is precisely the reason why when Channel 4 is conducting itself this way as a outlet of journalism, they are going to ask these sorts of questions. This is the type of shit that you're supposed to be showing your parents who are just like a little bit confused about what's going on and can have their well poisoned. No, poisoning of the well is what I was referencing. I'm not saying well poised. My mom likes your take on Conan.
I mean, this comes after recent statements by both the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court. What is the mood where you are now about what is going on in the light of all of that?
The mood is one of numbness, it's one of hopelessness, it's one of exhaustion. People, how long is this going to go on, and this real dread that there will just be more of this unless it comes to an end. I mean, people here are absolutely exhausted. They've got violence, brutal violence impacting every aspect of their life and their being. So really, really desperate times right now for the people of Gaza.
Sam, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Christian.
Hello, I'm Geetha Gurumuthy. Welcome to BBC News Now. And we begin with the Israel-Gaza war. And there is growing condemnation of an airstrike near Rafah, which Palestinian officials say killed at least 45 people, including women and children at a refugee camp. An Israeli government spokesman says the initial findings of its investigation are that an airstrike against a Hamas compound nearby set off a fire which killed the Palestinian civilians. The Palestinian presidency in the occupied West Bank described the strike as a massacre and accused Israel of...
Wait, what? Hasan, we should be making sure Trump doesn't get elected. If you keep on saying untrue things like Israel's an apartheid or genocide, you only help him get reelected, and then you'll see a real genocide that we could have prevented. Hasan, why don't you talk about how Hamas uses human shields to protect their military offensive? It's kind of gross, honestly. I love when the October 7 leavers come back in to chirp. No, this is just like, this is straight up. It's not even blue and on. This person doesn't give a shit about anything. It's just that untrue things like Israel's an apartheid. Brother, there are certain things that I'm not going to compromise on. Okay? Do I believe that Donald Trump would be worse than Joe Biden? Absolutely. Whether it be for Palestinians, whether it be for the entire world. However, in an effort to defend Joe Biden, who is currently literally participating in the ethnic cleansing campaign, if you think that I'm going to turn around and fucking lie and act like Joe Biden isn't doing that, or lie even further and act like Israel is not an apartheid, you are out of your fucking mind. Be for fucking real.
Deliberately targeting displaced people. Egypt has also condemned the attack and called on Israel to implement the order by the International Court of Justice to halt its military offensive in Rafah. French President Emmanuel Macron says he's outraged by the Israeli strikes on Rafah, and Qatar also says it could hinder reaching a ceasefire deal. Well, it came just hours after Hamas said it had launched a rocket attack on Tel Aviv on Sunday. Several were intercepted by air defense systems, according to the Israeli military. Dan Johnson has this report.
This was Israel.
If you truly care about Joe Biden not losing to Donald Trump, instead of doing this dumb shit and portraying yourself as a genocide denier, You should probably be smiling and dialing. One, you should probably be trying to pressure the Biden administration. When this was posted, but it was like fucking 20 years ago, I think. It's literally from 2001, I think. I've been saying this since day one. They killed a third of Hamas fighters while they recruit a bunch more, destroyed only a third of the tunnels, bombed a bunch of hostages, and strengthened Hamas politically to unprecedented extents. The only achievement is a temporary weakening of Hamas's direct civil/military control. It's not just genocidal, it's completely nonsensical. Well, genocide is completely nonsensical. Think about it this way. The final solution. Think about the final solution for a second. What the fuck are you doing wasting resources while you open up new fronts of the war and get your shit pushed in? Genocide is always nonsensical. Like, that's the whole point. This is why we say fascism is a death cult. This is why we say fascism is like inherently a suicidal ideology. It just makes no sense when you're like, well, what are we doing here? Is a question one must ask. It's from 2014, I think, still long ago. Oh, okay. It's not from 2001. It's from 2014. I don't understand why liberals will be like, if you don't vote for Trump, unimaginable. I mean, if you don't vote for Brandon, sorry. If you don't vote for Joe Biden, an untold amount of cruelty will happen to you that Trump will do, and I will enjoy it. Then vote for Trump, dumbass. The fuck do you mean? Like, what are we doing? It makes no sense. What you're saying is that you don't give a shit. For those wondering how Trump will be handling the war in Gaza, protests on college campuses, and efforts to create a Palestinian state, if you get me reelected, we're going to set that movement back 25 to 30 years. One thing I do, any student that protests, I throw them out of the country. You know, there are a lot of foreign students. As soon as they hear that, they're going to behave. Okay. So, again, Brandon level of dealing with the protests, maybe a little bit further. Is that what it is? Okay. That's cool, man. I like that Morning Joe Brandon, and Donald Trump are almost entirely aligned on this. That's great.
How a fire broke out, and that was that sadly took the lives of others. Now, I say it appears to because it is under investigation, and the IDF investigates every accident of this nature to see what actually happened.
Well, Shayna Lowe from the Norwegian Refugee Council in Jerusalem expressed shock at the strike in Rafah.
We are just as shocked as everyone seeing the images coming out of Gaza late last night and early this morning. This is a clear sign of why the implementation of the ICJ's order last week on halting military operations in Rafah is so necessary. It's truly unconscionable to think that it's almost 8 months into this, we are still seeing images of women, children, civilians being targeted and killed in such a way.
The head of Gaza's largest United Nations agency, UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, says the strikes in Rafah are a reminder that nowhere is safe in Gaza.
I cannot comment on the casualties because we haven't been able to properly communicate with our team on the ground. I saw images. They are deeply disturbing and horrifying. I think we have been clear more than once. There is no safe space in Gaza.
Will it ever get to a point where the UN security force will be sent into Israel? They can't override the US? No. As long as the United States is a part of the Security Council, okay, a part of the permanent members, the permanent 5 members of the Security Council, there will be no action from the UN, because as the permanent members of the Security Council, they have veto power, and they will always override any kind of action that the United Nations engages in.